We're dealing with another disease outbreak, people. Diphtheria. So far, Nigeria has confirmed 836 cases and 86 deaths between May and June this year alone. And don't take my words for it. This figure is from the National Center for Disease Control, who are now releasing situation reports on this disease. 33 local government areas infected in 7 states and the Federal Capital Territory. So we decided to have a proper conversation about this with the Director, FCT Public Health Department, Dr. Sadiq Abdurrahman, who announced the outbreak in the FCT. And for our focus on the nation's capital, we find out what we can about this silent killer. And as we do every week, we have our Abuja wrap. This is Dateline Abuja.
The Senate for confirmation. The President's Chief of Staff, Mr. Femi Gbajabiamila, brought the list to the Senate chamber during Thursday's legislative proceedings. Prominent on the list of 28 ministerial nominees are 4 former governors Nyesom Wike, Nasir El-Rufai, Dave Umahi, and Badaru Abubakar. Some former lawmakers made the cut, namely Senators Abubakar Kyari, John Eno, Sani Danladi, Honorable Ekberikpe Ekpo, and Honorable Olubumi Ojo. There are 7 female ministerial nominees: Mrs. Hannatu Musawa, Dr. Betta Edu, Dr. Doris Uzoka, Representative Nkeruka Onyejocha, Representative Stella Okotete, Mrs. Imam Ibrahim, and Representative Uju Kennedy Ohaneye. President Bola Tinubu has promised to re-engineer the finances and economy of Nigeria, even as a call for the patience and understanding of Nigerians, particularly the youth, assuring them that the hardship of the moment will eventually give way for a more prosperous, equitable, and inclusive economy. The president said this when he received the All Progressives Congress national youth leaders from across the 36 states of the Federation and the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, and the presidential villa. Even as the country continues to grapple with economic challenges amid the fuel subsidy removal, the president says Nigerians must understand that the proposed palliatives are just a temporary solution, but the long-term solution is to re-engineer the economy. President Bola Tinubu has condemned any attempt to seize power and undermine constitutional authority in Niger Republic. The president said this after a meeting with the president of Benin Republic at the presidential villa. Speaking to the press after the meeting, President Tinubu, in his capacity as the chairman of ECOWAS Authority of Heads of State and Government, reiterated his commitment to working with other ECOWAS leaders to promote stability and peace in the West African region. He said President Talon will head to Niamey, the capital of Niger, to address the situation. The Speaker of the House of Representatives, Tajuddin Abbas, has expressed his optimism that some concrete actions will be taken in the next few days to address the demands of the National Association of Resident Doctors who are presently on strike. This follows a meeting the Speaker had with President Tinubu at the presidential villa. The Speaker was accompanied by the leadership of the House, and the President is also being briefed on the issues that led to the strike and has appealed for more time from the striking doctors. In a related development, the Nigeria Labour Congress says its planned protest slated for next week will continue even as labour unions continue talking with the federal government on palliatives to cushion the effect of subsidy removal. The Vice President, Senator Kashim Shettima, departed Abuja to represent President Bola Tinubu at 2 major international summits in Rome, Italy, and St. Petersburg, Russia. At the Rome event, Vice President Shettima joined other global leaders for the first stock-taking moment summit, themed Transforming Food Systems for People, Planet and Prosperity, holding from Monday the 24th to Wednesday the 26th of July. During the summit, the Vice President would chair a high-level session with the theme, Innovative Financing for Food Systems Transformation, the Case of Nigeria, and the side event on scaling up multi-stakeholders collaboration and investment in the implementation of food system transformation pathways in Nigeria. Vice President Shettima then proceeded from Rome to St. Petersburg in Russia to represent the President at the Russia-Africa Summit from Wednesday, July 26 to Saturday, July 29. The Senate has condemned the sit-at-home in the southeast and is asking the federal government to collaborate with the Finnish government and extradite Simon Ekpa for prosecution. The upper chamber, however, rejects a recommendation seeking the release of the leader of IPOB, Nnamdi Kanu, from detention. These decisions were taken by the Senate after debating a motion on the alarming impact of the sit-at-home order in the southeastern part of the country.
The Senate is aware that thousands of innocent lives have been lost since this action of sit-at-home in the southeast started. Mr. President, the Senate is worried that if the activities of Simon Ekpa, who is issuing the illegal sit-at-home order, is not checked, he may succeed in corrupting the minds of Nigerian youths and turning them against the government.
As Nigeria celebrates the National Diaspora Day, it has become expedient that the federal government fully harnesses the economic contributions of Nigerians in the diaspora as their remittances hit $25 billion, while the number of Nigerians in the diaspora reaches 17 million. The chairperson of the Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, Mrs. Diphtheria, stated this while delivering her welcome address at the 2023 National Diaspora Day and Merit Award at the banquet hall of the State House in Abuja. Representing President Bola Tinubu at the event is his Chief of Staff, Mr. Femi Gbajabiamila, who restates the Tinubu administration's resolve to ensure Nigerians in diaspora play their part in nation building.
We still need a befitting office accommodation. With all we do, we still don't have a space to call our own. So, Mr. President, sir, we hope that we will get a befitting office accommodation. Everybody say amen. Then we may need to review the Income Act to make the board a bit more smarter and sustaining funding mechanism for activity.
Welcome back. 836 confirmed cases and over 80 deaths from diphtheria between May and June of 2023 is very worrying, and the numbers keep rising. 71.5% of the confirmed cases occurred among children aged 2 to 14 years old. And this is despite the fact that this disease is a vaccine-preventable disease. The Nigeria Center for Disease Control is noting that only 181, that's 21.7% of the 836 confirmed cases, were fully vaccinated. As with most disease outbreaks, calls have been made for people to be more hygienic. Please watch this. Call it a silent killer disease that is currently wreaking havoc in some states of the Federation, and you may not be wrong. Diphtheria disease, which has been reported in at least 20 states and the Federal Capital Territory, has affected at least 798 individuals and killed over 80 people. It is quiet, not talked about so much, yet dangerous, and currently sending dozens of people, mainly children, to the hospital. The disease is called diphtheria, a bacterial infection which is now wreaking havoc across the country. It is caused by a toxin produced by the bacteria called Bacterium diphtheriae. First confirmed in December of 2022 by the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, diphtheria infection is gradually becoming a national health concern, with over 782 confirmed cases and 80 deaths recorded in 7 months.
Diphtheria it has been about since December, and we unfortunately expect more cases to arise in different parts of the country. But why? Because this is related to historical gaps in vaccination coverage. More than 70% of the cases are occurring in people that are aged 2 to 14 years old. Okay? Over 82% of confirmed cases are unvaccinated. Okay? Now, for people who are 2 to 14 years old that are bearing the brunt of this disease now, what this means is that anything from 2 to 14 years ago, they did not make use of opportunities to get vaccinated. Because if you are vaccinated according to our immunization schedule and you receive your 3 doses of the pentavalent vaccine, which contains anti-diphtheria toxin at 6, 10, and 14 weeks, then you are protected against diphtheria. Okay, so this is why I say we are unfortunately seeing the consequences of historical poor vaccination coverage. As you know, there have been more recent efforts to make sure that vaccination coverage improves, and I think we are seeing a bit of the evidence because infants or children under 2 who have higher coverage these days are less affected by the ongoing outbreak. We are saying 2 to 14-year-olds, but there are even older people, above 40 adults that are affected, which is why poor vaccination coverage is the whole story about the current diphtheria outbreak.
Currently, diphtheria infection has been reported in at least 20 states, including Katsina, Sokoto, Enugu, and Lagos State, with Kano State bearing the heaviest burden of this disease. In the nation's capital, we spoke to Dr. Isa Vatsa, the Executive Secretary of the Federal Capital Territory Primary Healthcare Board, on the prevalence, prevention, and the general status of the disease in the nation's capital.
In FCT, we had an outbreak, or rather we have an outbreak of one case. But what happened? We had a family that came up with symptoms, signs and symptoms that looked like diphtheria. And one good thing about FCT administration is that our surveillance system is very, very sensitive. Probably if it's not because of sensitivity of our surveillance system, probably will not have even picked those families that got infected. Our health workers have been adequately trained to pick these diseases within the community. If not for that, probably we'll have had a larger outbreak. This individual that got infected, who was positive, we had about 5 cases at the beginning, and then eventually, 8 cases. At the beginning, we had 8 cases. All their samples were taken to the lab. One turned out to be positive, and that one died, a 4-year-old boy. And this happened in a community where we call it Tungang Wakili, within the ward in Amak, but also had cases, similar cases across in Bori Area Council, in Dawaki. 37 samples were collected and sent to the lab. And so far, so good. The good news is that only one positive case was detected, all true. So all other cases are negative. And as I'm talking to, we also have one case that is being managed, but that one is also negative. So I'm just managing and treating him as a bacterial case, and of course, as a suspected case, and being managed with array of treatment modalities. And the person is responding to treatment.
The infection can be spread from an infected person to another through droplets from sneezing or coughing.
We need to also keep ourselves and environment very clean. This hand sanitizer, or cleanliness of the hand, we have learned some lessons from COVID, and that was one of the best practices that I think we need to, a message that we need to carry forward. Most infections that are transmitted through airways, you need to keep your hand clean, keep your environment clean, and of course, even your dresses clean. Because if you come in contact with the product from individual who is infected, either through table contact, handrails, car handles, steering, and a host of others, you get infected. So hand cleaning, hand sanitizer, environmental sanitation are extremely important. I want to also use this to thank the FCT administration for its proactive nature. The FCT administration, under the leadership of our permanent secretary, was highly proactive. They have come out in proactive manner to attack, to control further spread. And luckily for us, we have not had new cases. And I think the awareness is high within the community. But people need to also be reminded that apart from diphtheria, if your hygienic practice is very poor, you can come up with any other disease. So primarily, we need to actually keep our hands clean, keep our environment clean, keep our children should also be vaccinated.
Diphtheria, though deadly, is a vaccine-preventable disease. It is also covered by the Federal Ministry of Health's routine immunization program, making it a free vaccine for all willing individuals to take and get protected against this killer disease. My guest on the program is the Director, FCT Public Health Department, Dr. Sadiq Abdurrahman, the man who announced the outbreak of diphtheria infection in some parts of Abuja. So what are we looking at here, really? I've heard it affects mainly children. Mainly. So does that mean adults can get this as well? It's a vaccine-preventable disease, but over 21% of confirmed cases were fully vaccinated against the disease. So what are we looking at here? Our guest offers us some clarity. Please watch this. Dr. Sadiq Abdurrahman, welcome to Dateline Abuja.
Thank you for having me.
Let's talk a bit about diphtheria, because this is a rising concern. We're seeing cases even surge in places like Kaduna. What's actually going on? What is diphtheria?
Great. It is a bacterial infection, typically called by the species of bacteria called Coronium bacteria. Essentially, it is a disease, vaccine immunizable and preventable disease among children exclusively between the ages of 0, 10, and maybe 14 months. So it is on the list of the routine immunizations, if you like, which we call pentavalent vaccine. However, it is a disease of public health concern because it is targeted among the diseases that vaccines can mitigate them and get them controlled. But here we are seeing one case of confirmed case of the disease is an outbreak.
One case is an outbreak?
Is an outbreak.
Because that's what my next question was going to be.
Yeah.
We're dealing with an outbreak? Why is that the case? Why is it an outbreak?
Because it's already targeted among the diseases that we hopefully, with the vaccination, if well ramp up and the coverage is high enough, it can be eliminated. And it is targeted around the age group of 6, 7, 10, and 14 months, and even the preschool ages.
So this is an illness that we should have gotten rid of.
Absolutely.
But we haven't gotten rid of it
not yet. So
why? Because people are not taking the vaccine?
Yes. It will interest you and the general public that the disease, the current outbreak we are witnessing in the country, in FCT, is among those that are not vaccinated. If the child is fully vaccinated to the adulthood, you have no business with diphtheria. So it's very sad. If you look at as at the end of June, the data for the entire country, about 800 to 836 cases. It might be more now as we speak. Out of that, just about 181 that are fully vaccinated. So it means it's occurring among those that have never taken the vaccine. Similarly, we are seeing a similitude at the FCT level. We have about 40 cases so far in FCT, 2 confirmed, 1 dead, and 2 on admission. Out of this, all the cases are among those that are not vaccinated.
But I want to talk about that because you just said about 800 cases nationwide.
Nationally, yeah, as at the end of June.
As at the end of June,
because the data is changing exactly.
But you said out of that, 182 were
181 are the only fully vaccinated.
So that means that among the 800,
exactly,
there are people who are vaccinated.
Only 181 is vaccinated.
So 181 people who are children who are vaccinated against the disease and have the disease. Is that what you're saying to us?
Not the disease. Have the symptoms of the disease.
Have the symptoms of the disease.
Exactly. The target organ is the upper respiratory tract. So the person might have some coryza, runny nose, and if there is not detected early and treated, or treatment instituted early, it can progress to having some swelling of the lymph node around the neck, giving a characteristic appearance of a bull neck. And that will be the danger signs. That will cause decreased oxygenation, and the individual will become dyspneic, sinus, and it could lead to death. So this is how diphtheria presents.
But this happens only to children.
Mostly children, yes.
Mostly doesn't mean absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah.
So adults can have this.
Because the cases we suspected so far out of the 40, about the age range is so wide, from 4 years to up to 48 years. So
this can affect adults? Can
affect adults, yeah. For it to cause fatality, it varies from individuals' immune system.
So let's go through what you've just told us today, because I'm more worried now than I was before this interview.
Yeah.
First of all, this disease mostly targets children, but can also target adults.
Absolutely, especially.
You said it is a vaccine, is vaccine preventable.
Disease.
However, of the 800 cases in Nigeria, we had 181 that showed the same symptoms of the disease among people who have been vaccinated.
No.
Yes, you said 181 of them
are unvaccinated.
Are unvaccinated.
Sorry, that are fully vaccinated.
Yes, so the 181 are fully vaccinated.
That's right.
For this disease, and they still are showing symptoms of the disease.
Yes, that mimics the disease.
That mimics the disease.
By implication, like I told you, the signs and symptoms mimic other diseases. Even COVID, that's how it presents.
Been targeted for routine immunization. Has this been going on for a very long time?
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's say you got immunized in the 80s. I'm trying to see if I'm okay. So let's say you got immunized in the 80s. Is it likely that I probably took a diphtheria immunization?
Very unlikely, because
Very unlikely
because even the doctor talking to you, I don't know my immunization status, routine immunization, childhood status. That's the truth of the matter. That's taking about 50 years. So, however, along the line, you are in endemic setup. You build on immunity. You come across all these diseases.
Can I go get vaccinated?
Are you from this state or maybe UK or wherever?
I live in Abuja right now, and I hear that there's a
most likely you might have come across.
Can I go take the vaccine now? That's my question.
For you, I don't think it's necessary, because you might have come across the germs, the bugs that boosted your immunity.
All right. Well, before we let you go, just your word to the FCT residents who are listening right now. You've educated us quite a bit.
Yeah, thank you very much.
But what should residents of the FCT be doing right now?
Absolutely. This is everybody's business. We are in outbreak. The message is to every one of us, parents, ward carers, healthcare workers, everybody. Please, let's take our children for routine immunization. Go and get them vaccinated if they have not been vaccinated. Secondly, issue of hygiene, personal hygiene. All these diseases can be abated 50-60% with personal hygiene, with environmental hygiene. We
do have to wrap it up there, but thank you very much.
It's my pleasure.
Dr. Sadiq Abdurrahman, for being with us on Dateline Abuja, and good luck with all the work you have ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks to my guest and to everyone who spoke to us today on the program. The rule of thumb when it comes to health is eat healthy, stay hydrated, and keep yourself and your surroundings clean, especially if you live in a crowded part of the nation's capital, parts that are prone to filth. Do everything within your power to stay in clean environments. If you feel a sore throat, a fever, gray or white patches developing in your throat, which can block your airways and create a barking cough, a swollen neck, myocarditis, inflamed nerves, kidney problems, and bleeding problems due to low levels of platelets, consult your doctor. Diphtheria is usually spread between people by direct contact, through the air, or through contact with contaminated objects. Asymptomatic transmissions and chronic infections are also possible. Please stay healthy. That's Dateline Abuja this week. Please let us know the happenings in your neighborhood using the social media handles showing right now.